5 US states with way colder winters than Britain. I mean, I don't know. I've never been to the UK during winter time, but I can't imagine it would be that cold, especially London. I mean, probably the north of the UK definitely would be really cold. I remember when I was in Newcastle, is in the northern part of England. Yeah, it was in October and beginning of November. The weather was like 1 or 2 degrees, and the wind was blowing so cold. It was terrible. I hated it. So I'm guessing that it's really cold the winter over there. Probably in the southern part of England is not as crazy, but I'm just guessing. I'm not too sure about it. And regarding the 5 US states, definitely Alaska is one of those. Uh, Another one might be Minnesota, and I don't know, New York City, New York, I guess. I don't know. Let's learn something new. Come on, let the man speak, Mauro. Don't try to guess too much.
Fahrenheit is 24 degrees colder than Scotland's average. Scotland being the coldest country in the United Kingdom. And these are averages. This is mental.
Newcastle actually was kind of close to Scotland. I think it's just 1 hour away by drive. I'm not too sure. I haven't been to Scotland. I don't know why I didn't go. I didn't stay there for long.
Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those pertains to the weather, specifically the temperature, especially at this time of year when it's bloody cold here in America. And of course, I've talked about
Wait, when was this uploaded? Oh, this was uploaded 4 years ago. Okay.
this a lot on this channel. It is freezing in the United States, specifically in the northern portion of it at this time of year. But growing up in England, I had my doubts about that. I watched a lot of American television, assumed that everywhere was palm trees and beaches, and thought, yes, I want to move there at some point in my life. This place, England, is freezing. Well, let's take a look at the facts on that, because it's not strictly true. Now, granted, of course, there are times when Britain really does get down to the point of freezing. It's not a particularly common occurrence. It will happen now and again. Indeed, if you were to look at the statistics on this, if you were to look at the data from 1981 to 2010, as I did, you'll find that during the months of December, January, February, and March, which we sort of consider winter quite loosely in terms of this, that in terms of its average low temperatures, did average about freezing exactly. So 0 degrees C, or, 33.
Let me check what's the weather like now. It doesn't. Oh. Okay. I think it's pretty freezing right here too. Oh no, there are 2 degrees actually. Yeah, degrees, that's a little bit more than that. I don't know in Fahrenheit.
Degrees Fahrenheit. But that's Scotland. That's the coldest country in Britain. What about my homeland of England? Well, in that very same time, by the very same metric, England sort of averaged around about 34 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Fahrenheit. And that, of course, is about 1.5 Celsius above freezing. So that's
so
the
it's
low
35.
average, right? That's not the average, and it's not the high average. So on the whole, you're not really expecting to see Britain reach the point of freezing or even go beyond it. That doesn't mean it doesn't go beyond it or beneath it at any point. Of course, it has in history. The lowest recorded temperature in history happened in Scotland. No surprise there. No surprise indeed that it happened in Aberdeenshire in Scotland, and the temperature got down to minus 17 degrees Fahrenheit, or that's minus 27 degrees
crazy.
Celsius. That to us is cold. I mean, I think that is to people here is quite cold. Similarly, the coldest temperature in English history was minus 15
Illinois
degrees Fahrenheit.
also,
Again,
right?
Completely unfit for humans. Nobody should be walking around in that. But, I've come to find since moving here, and this is a warning, by the way, to any British people that are also thinking of moving to the northern portion of the United States, it gets way colder than it does in Britain. Now, a bit of backstory for those of you that don't know. I left the United Kingdom about 11 years ago and moved to America's Midwest, specifically to a state called Indiana. Indiana is pretty cold. It's certainly colder on average during winter than Great Britain, but it doesn't even come close to rivaling the 5 states that we have on this list today, which, to be fair, are not even fit for tardigrades. And the same goes for Chicago too. This place gets even colder than Indianapolis. I mean, astronomical. You may have seen my video last year during the polar vortex. I almost froze to death. I didn't. That's a lie. I was inside. I spoke a moment ago about the astronomically low temperature set in Scotland of 17 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, hold on to your hats, because the lowest ever recorded in Chicago was at O'Hare Airport, and it was minus 27 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
That's 33 degrees Celsius below zero. That's why I've got this coat. You know, I mean, I shouldn't really be wearing it inside. This is a studio, but you suffer for your art. And so this video is really for two types of people, I suppose. It's for people from Britain, like me, that are thinking of moving over to the northern United States. And it's also for people that live in colder places than Chicago and just want to gloat after all these years of me talking about how bad it is here. I mean, I think it's hell. I can't imagine living where you do. I'm going to have to, because without further ado, here are 5 states with way colder winters than Britain.
Wisconsin.
So I can tell you from experience that Wisconsin is bloody freezing. We went there for our anniversary, which just happens to be Valentine's Day. Don't ask. And of course, Valentine's Day is during one of the coldest periods in the year in general. So going up to Milwaukee at that time of year, not the best idea. We'd never been, so we just wanted to check it out for the first time. And we're glad we did, but we've been advised to go again in the summer to get the real experience. Because it's just that freezing. I mean, you know, looking at those same metrics that we looked at for Scotland earlier on, during that 1981 to 2010 period, when you're talking about average lows and you add up the 5 most populous cities in Wisconsin and then take the average of that, you're looking at about 18.7 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 7.4 degrees C. Now, the staggering thing about that is that the most populous cities in Wisconsin are kind of more geared toward the south of the state rather than the north, where it's even colder. So the entire state average would be colder even than that. Now, it was quite hard to get a lot of the sort of just statewide averages in general. So for this very video,
I'm okay. I'm quite okay with the cold weather, actually. I always prefer this period of time over summer. I can't stand sweating, you know, in the summer. I mean, in my house, the temperature is about 17 or 18 degrees. I'm guessing it's like, I don't know how to calculate. My God, I need to learn how to calculate in Fahrenheit. That's fucked up, you know. I have this channel. I need to learn to do the calculation as an American would. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty okay, you know. It's not too cold. It's not too hot in the house. It's perfect. I don't even need to. I just wear short sleeves, whatever. I'm okay with the colder weather. But here it's rare that it will go below zero, below 33 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, so I don't know. Sometimes it happens. It's really cold, but I just cover myself properly. I don't mind it that much, actually. Yeah, I take the cold over the heat any day. But when it's like that, -7, -10, bro, that's way too much. That's way too much. I don't know if I can afford it. Not afford it, if I can resist it, if I can survive it. Especially when the wind blows. Because where I live, the wind is basically inexistent. But other cities in Italy, the wind is crazy. So yeah, that's the worst.
Done is taken the 5 most populous cities in the states in question and taken that same average. Nonetheless, people far smarter than me figured out that these 5 are the 5 coldest states in total. And Wisconsin, like some of the other states on this list, suffers the cold air from Canada. And because of that, you get state records like -55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's just awful. If you went out in that temperature, I'm fairly certain your head would fall off. And that was in 1996.
Actually, I watched before a documentary about Russia. I don't remember what it was called. The region is like the coldest region in the world that belonged to Russia. They were showing this family how they survived the extreme cold. It was crazy. They had to like wear so many clothes, facial mask, because the breeze might just freeze your face. You will lose like the ability to move. That was crazy. And you can just stay outside for like a couple of minutes, not even more than that.
There are people watching this that remember that. So if you do, let me know in the comments down below if you lived in Sawyer County 24 years ago and how you kept your head on. Statistically, Wisconsin does have the 5th coldest winters in the entire nation. And I'm glad it did, because I wasn't able to include it on my list of snowiest states, much to the chagrin of people that live in Wisconsin. The same can't be said of our next entry.
Maine.
You've got to hand it to the state of Maine, one of the snowiest places in the United States and one of the coldest. It made the top 5 in both lists, and it just happens that I've been there twice. One for each weather type, I suppose, although I should say I have not had the misfortune of being there in winter. But just how cold can it get? Well, its average low temperatures just about beat Wisconsin. Once again, as with all of the states on this list, I did take the most populous cities in the state of Maine, just because those are the places that British people, or any people, are more likely to move to within that state. Again, if you want an idea of what hell sounds like, then just imagine that these are actually wild underestimates for the entire state. And in the case of Maine, its 5 most populous cities averaged a low temperature of about 17.6 degrees Fahrenheit during the winter months, -8 degrees C. Now we're getting somewhere pretty treacherous. These are averages, all right? These aren't extremes. And that's just in the likes of Portland, Augusta, Bangor, right? If you were to move far upstate, then your head, at the very least, would start to wobble or just freeze still. But funnily enough, while the average winter temperatures in Maine just about beat Wisconsin, its lowest all-time recorded temperature did not. In fact, Aroostook County yielded a very pathetic -50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's -45.6 degrees C for anybody who's keeping count on their shivering hand. But the next one, as is customary with these types of lists, blows that record completely out of the ice.
Minnesota. Okay, I was right.
To learn that the state of Minnesota has a
Okay. Minnesota, I got it right. Alaska for sure is gonna be number 1. There's no doubt about that. I would say maybe Colorado, right? I think Colorado. Let's go with Colorado.
Particularly high concentration of Scandinavian ancestry. And that's, Scandinavian people would love Minnesota, wouldn't they? I mean, most Scandinavians were probably born in the snow, is my understanding. So they're fine with it. And they drink copious amounts of coffee, and they're good. For the rest of us, this one's sort of taking the cake a little bit. But I am glad it's on the list for the very reason I was glad Wisconsin's on the list, because it didn't quite enter the list of snowiest states in America, which is balmy, because it is a snowy state, just like Wisconsin. But its impressive climatic feature is just how bloody cold it is. And there are probably people watching at home going, oh, you're including wind chill in this. No, I'm not. These stats are actually before wind chill as well. Didn't mention that, did I? Minnesota's average low temperature, and again, this is just in the most populated cities, was 11.9 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
That is -10 degrees C. Woefully horrendous. And that does not include Duluth or, other places up in the north of the state. I suspect northern Minnesotans turn into T-1000 after he falls in the liquid nitrogen. They walk out the house, freeze over, try and walk a bit, and then their legs just crumble.
I don't know. 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, you're not gonna freeze, probably. You're not gonna freeze. If you cover yourself properly, yeah, you're not gonna freeze. Most of the times when I go out, it's like 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And yeah, at the beginning, of course, I'm really cold. I cover myself properly. I put on my scarf. I put on my beanie. I'm really cold at the beginning, but after 20 or 30 minutes of walking, I start to sweat. I start to feel really hot. Maybe not hot, but I start to sweat a little bit. So yeah, -10, I will imagine if you are used to that weather, you will start to sweat if you wear too many clothes. It's not a weather that you will freeze over. I feel like it should be double that to start to freeze over. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. I think when I was younger, in my city, we reached that temperature, but I can't actually remember. Like now with climate change, it's really rare that the temperature will go below 0. And I'm talking about, of course, Celsius, not Fahrenheit.
You'd literally have to take with you one of those outdoor heaters.
Who was laughing?
Just crumble. You'd literally have to take with you one of those outdoor heaters that you find at train stations in Chicago just to survive. You might even have to press it against you. Don't do that. This isn't. I'm not giving advice to anybody that's going out in winter. Anyway, after getting a brain freeze just now, I'm going to go back to the facts. And the facts are that the lowest recorded temperature in Minnesota ever was minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, that's minus 51 degrees Celsius. I mean, it surely doesn't get any colder than that. In the world, much less the United States, it does.
North Dakota.
I've never experienced a North Dakota winter, and looking at some of the facts, I probably
wasn't Colorado.
Once again, North Dakota is a very, very snowy state. Don't get me wrong, it just didn't make the list of snowiest states in the United States. But it certainly makes this list. It is the second coldest pound-for-pound state in the nation. Now, granted, I did build it up to suggest that it absolutely demolished the record of Minnesota, but in fact, they're tied. Minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit is also the record for North Dakota, but where it does beat Minnesota and every other entry on this list, including our final entry, its top 5 most populated cities averaged a low temperature of 8.3 degrees Fahrenheit.
Ew.
That's an average low. So let's put that into context now that we've delved deep into the snow, into the list. Words don't mean anything anymore. 8.3 degrees Fahrenheit is 24 degrees colder than Scotland's average. Scotland being the coldest country in the United Kingdom. And these are averages. This is mental. Someone needs to check North Dakota just to see if microbes are still thriving. So if you know anybody that lives in North Dakota, call for help. I do have it penciled in, though, to
Let me know, whoever is watching this video from North Dakota.
visit there at some point, and that point being probably in the middle of a summer. I'd be very interested to know if the entire state by then is just one big pool of water. So, good summer swim, bring my shorts. Sounds good. And as the temperature continues to drop throughout, so does our next entry. Our next entry is about to drop, is what I meant.
That was too obvious.
No surprise that Alaska made it to number 1. It probably does come as a surprise that I'm dressed like a bounty hunter. Just bear with me on this and we will get through it. Alaska is...
He looks more like a trapper or a drill rapper.
Pretty cold, but of course it is. It's much more northern than the rest of the United States. It's also more western and eastern, fun fact. But all that aside, if you take some of its most populous cities, so Anchorage, Fairbanks, Juneau and the like, take the average of their lowest winter temperatures, you get a whopping 14.5 degrees Fahrenheit. That's actually not as high as I expected. And that's because a lot of their most populated cities are very much in the southern portion of Alaska. And Alaska is a huge state. So this now, I'm starting to see why using popular cities is bad for data. And I shouldn't have done that. It specifically doesn't work for Alaska just because of its sheer size and the fact that in the northern portion, it gets just astronomically cold. So chances are if you are going to move to Alaska, it probably will be one of the big cities and you'll probably be fine. Unless that city is Fairbanks, which, and I had to reread this a few times, its average low temperature in that same exact time wasn't just below 0 on the Celsius scale. It was minus 11.25 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm never going to Fairbanks, Alaska. Alaska's cold, and not only is it top of the pile when we're talking about average low temperatures during winter, but its coldest ever temperature would make Mr. Freeze cry horrible frozen tears. And
bro, that's crazy.
The coldest temperature recorded in the state of Alaska, and indeed the United States of America, was more like something you'd see on Pluto. It was minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 62 degrees Celsius.
God.
I overdid it for this video. I overdressed for the comedy factor. But the truth is, I'd probably die in that temperature if I went out in just
anyone would
for,
probably
an hour. That could be an exaggeration. I've got nothing to check it against because I've never known. No one's known temperatures like that except maybe 4 people from the early 1970s. If you're watching, let me. It's very unlikely. That's it for this episode. A bonus mention for South Dakota and Michigan and Montana. They didn't quite make the cut, but they weren't far away. And in Montana's case, it once recorded minus 70 degrees. So don't move there. As ever, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't had a chance to do so, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. And I'm just going to remove that now. It's very hard to breathe.
Quite clever.
I want to do a big shout out to all of my patrons who make this channel possible.
Okay, I'm gonna skip this part, but definitely check out his channel because he always brings gems, you know. I'm learning so much about the USA thanks to this British man. Thank you so much for watching my video. Let me know where you come from. What is the average temperature in your state or your city? Say it in Fahrenheit, better. So I will force myself to work and learn how to calculate the Fahrenheit degrees, you know. I will memorize the formula in my head. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.